What happens when a 93 kilogram endurance cyclist tries to ride up Alpe Du Zwift in under an hour? Hi everyone, welcome back to Type 2 Cycling. I'm going to bring you something a little bit different today. This channel is more about long outdoor endurance rides or Audax events or randonneuring, but it's really icy out on the roads at the moment and I tend to do a lot of indoor training this time of year. So instead I'm going to try and condense a day's worth of Type 2 fun into one indoor ride and see if I can ride up Alpe Du Zwift in under an hour. So as I'm getting warmed up, I thought I might bring you some stats about Alpe Du Zwift. For anyone that doesn't know or doesn't really use Zwift, it's the virtual equivalent of Alpe d'Huez in the Alps. It's 12.2 kilometers long with 1,036 meters of climbing and an average gradient of 8.5%. Okay, that's the warm up done. A few quick stretches, taking my base layer off. Somehow I don't think I'm gonna need it. Got my Larry music on, so let's do it. They say to climb the Alp in under 60 minutes, you need to maintain about 3.2 watts per kilogram. So I weighed myself before starting this ride and I was about 93 kilos. And that meant I needed to maintain just under 300 watts for the 60 minutes. Interestingly, on Trainer Road, which is the training software I use, my AI estimated FTP is actually 300 watts, bang on. And they say FTP is a power that you should in theory be able to hold for about an hour. So I think this will be quite a good test of how accurate Trainer Road's AI detection is. So the ride started off fairly comfortably, but I was very conscious that this was all new territory to me. I rarely ever do max effort rides, to be honest. It tends to be either long outdoor, slow and steady rides or sort of shorter intervals on the trainer, you know, like anywhere from 2 to 15 minutes. It takes so long to recover from these kind of efforts and I don't think it's particularly conducive to actually getting fitter, so it's something I tend to avoid. I guess it might help you to build some mental resilience or give you a good idea of sort of what you can sustain over an hour, what your FTP might be, but it's probably not something I'd recommend doing regularly, to be honest. But this was just a bit of fun anyway, as I couldn't really go outside. So early on in the ride, I was feeling pretty good and my heart rate was quite manageable. Having said that, I think it was about 20 minutes into the effort where the first kind of seeds of doubt started to creep in. You're only a third of the way up, you've still got another 40 minutes of pushing quite hard. And, you know, I just had that niggling voice in the back of my head. But I did my best to just ignore the demons, as they say, and just keep pushing and, you know, see where I got to. One thing I will say that's quite helpful on Alpe Du Zwift is it kind of times you for each section between each of the corners. I think there's 21 hairpins and for each of them it kind of counts you down to the next corner, tells you your average power, your average heart rate as well. So that's quite good in terms of giving you something to focus on, and it also sort of breaks down the ride into smaller, more manageable chunks as well. By the time I got about halfway up the climb, my heart rate was still manageable, I think like mid 170s. I also noticed there are quite a few more flatter sections coming in, sort of interspersed between the really steep 10-11% sections. And that's somewhere where the bigger riders' raw watts can really make a difference. So the challenge for me was to try and keep my feet on the pedals and sort of maintain that power, or even try to surge a bit through any of the flat sections. I think the natural thing is to try and have a bit of a respite when it's not as steep, because it's a fairly consistent like double-digit incline for most of the climb. But if you can build up a little bit of speed, even just for a few seconds on those flatter sections, it'll carry you into the incline. And I think I read online that even if you're only saving like 2 to 4 seconds on each corner over the course of the whole climb, that could be another minute or minute and a half off your time. Another thing I noticed on the ride is it actually takes quite a lot of mental concentration to maintain a target power for that long. So on my outdoor rides, I'm never particularly focused on like a target power. I might have like a target speed in mind, but for the most part, it's a bit more relaxed. And at the other end of the spectrum, when I'm doing my shorter, more intense workouts on the trainer, it tends to be in erg mode, which is basically where your trainer kind of varies its resistance based on the target power and your cadence. So you don't really have to think about it. You just pedal and the trainer will work it all out for you. And I was finding, especially as I got more tired as the climb went on, that it was really difficult to maintain focus on that power. Like I'd lose a bit of concentration, and then before I knew it, my power was like 50 less watts than what I should be doing. And similarly, if I stood up to surge for a little bit, like it might have shot up to 350 watts or something like that, which is a recipe for disaster if you do it too many times. So I had to really concentrate on just staring at that power number and trying to keep it as close to 300 watts as possible. And it almost became like a mental challenge as much as a physical one. So at this point, I'm about 3/4 of the way up the ride and definitely feeling more positive, but still not trying to count my chickens at all. I was still watching my heart rate creep up. One of the things I tried to do to keep it in a bit more of a manageable range was to vary my cadence a little bit as well. I think the general consensus is, a faster cadence is better, is more efficient. But at the same time, for me anyway, like I've got pretty strong legs, I would say. And, my heart rate definitely drops when I drop my cadence a little bit. I guess it's kind of shuttling the effort from your lungs to your muscles. It just made the whole effort seem a little bit more manageable, to be honest, even if it might not have been optimal from like a physiological perspective. So as I was getting closer to the top, I had about 4 corners left with 15 minutes to go, which sounded encouraging, but it's actually really difficult to gauge your progress at that point. So you just have to kind of stay consistent and trust that 3.2 watts per kilogram power calculation, because I'd have been absolutely kicking myself if I thought, I've got this in the bag, and I sort of eased off a little bit and ended up missing the 1 hour by like a minute or so. By the time the clock got to 50 minutes, I kind of felt a bit more positive as well, because I know generally I can maintain my FTP for like a 10-minute interval. I do that quite often in my training mode workouts, although admittedly that's normally when your legs are fresh rather than when you've already got almost an hour worth of effort in them. By 2 corners to go, I had 7 minutes left and my heart rate was up to 180, but I knew if I just kept the power going and didn't spectacularly blow up, then hopefully I was going to make it. At this point I was getting quite excited, but also quite nervous, because I was just visualizing that I was going to get to the top and it would be like 60 minutes and 30 seconds or something like that. So I had to just keep pushing as hard as I could. Like in theory, 2 corners left, you think, it's going to be fine. And I was looking at the mini map in the corner on Zwift, but you don't know how long those two corners are, how steep they are. It's just really hard to judge whether you're going to make it or not. I suppose if you're someone that rides up and down the Alp quite regularly, then you get a good feel for it. But as I hadn't done it in a good few years, and I remember it being longer than you think when you get to the last few corners, I was a little bit nervous about that, so I had to just keep going. By the time I got to the last corner, I had 4.5 minutes left.
Okay, last corner, 4.5 minutes. I know it's long, but I might do it. Come on.
I knew there were some times earlier on in the climb where I wasn't maintaining that 3.2 watts per kilo. So I thought, I need to just try and push it up a little bit here, just to give myself the best chance of doing the sub 60 minutes. My legs were kind of screaming at this point, but at the same time, the adrenaline and sort of the excitement of being so close to the end kind of overtook that. And you know, they talk about like a runner's high with the endorphins flowing. Like I could definitely feel that. I don't think it was till the ETA figure popped up with like 2 minutes to the end where I actually finally felt like I could relax a little bit and I knew I was going to make it in time. Having said that, it was still probably the 2 longest minutes of my life. It was horrible. But yeah, kept going, 330, 340 watts, and then I just sprinted to the line at the end just to give myself the best possible time. And that was it, I made it. As you can see from the footage, it absolutely killed me. And at this point, I mentioned about endorphins and runner's high and stuff like that, but my legs were absolutely killing me. So looking at the stats, I finished the climb in 58 minutes and 49 seconds. So even had a minute to play with, which was nice. My average power was 299 watts, so pretty much bang on the money with that. And average heart rate was 175 BPM. So pretty significant day in the chair, to be honest. Overall, it was an interesting experience. I was really pleased that I managed to complete the climb in under 60 minutes. And it was quite interesting that in theory, that does mean my FTP is around 300 watts. I don't think I could have really pushed much harder, to be honest. Maybe like 1 or 2 watts on average, but maybe not even that. And as much as I enjoyed finally ticking that off my bucket list, a sub 1 hour Alpe Du Zwift, I'm in no rush to try that again. And I'm quite looking forward to some nice, relaxing, outdoor, long endurance bike rides. So I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, then please click like and subscribe to the channel. And hopefully I'll see you next time for some more endurance cycling videos.